inquest for accountability in the Life Esidimeni tragedy is continuing today. Public Interest Law Centre's Section 27 wants the key role players to be held accountable. The inquest into the deaths of over 140 psychiatric patients is going to be resuming in the High Court in Pretoria today. To remember, the patients died after they were moved to different non-government organizations back in 2016. Section 27 Executive Director Sasha Stevenson joining me now to unpack this. Sasha, good morning to you. So back to the High Court today, but calls for culpable homicide charges. Good morning. Tell me about that.
Good morning. Yes, it's been a long journey for the families who lost their loved ones in 2016 and have been through various legal processes. But we're now coming to the end of the inquest, and the purpose of the inquest is to determine what the legal cause of the deaths were and whether there is anyone who, on the face of it, contributed or caused any of the deaths. And so what we're arguing is that there are three people who fit that bill: the former MEC for Health, Khairani Mahlangu, the former Director of Mental Health, Dr. Makhabo Manamela, and Ms. Ethel Ncube, who ran an NGO called Precious Angels, where 20 people died.
Because earlier this year, money paid over to the victims and the families, but as you say, culpable homicide charges in this case for the, let's call it the top three that ultimately should take responsibility, but also no arrests made. This really doesn't look like justice is being served.
Justice is a slow process, as we can see through this case. You know, the arbitration that was held in 2017-18 came up with, or the arbitrator had various recommendations, including financial compensation. And for the people who had been involved in the arbitration, that compensation was paid straight away. So there are other people who have come forward later where the payment has been slower, but really there was direct and rapid implementation of those recommendations straight after the arbitration. But this, and that was part of government accepting responsibility for what happened. Now we're at an inquest, and the purpose there is quite different. As I said, this is about what the cause of death was and whether there should be criminal liability. It's about individual accountability rather than just broadly state accountability. And we're arguing that individual accountability and criminal accountability and liability is appropriate in this case, that the evidence supports it, and that we'll be arguing to the judge that she should make a recommendation in that regard. And then I'm afraid there's still another process, which is for the NPA to decide whether they're in fact going to charge and prosecute. So this is an important milestone, but unfortunately not the end of the very long road in this case.
I also remember one of the big talking points last time this was in court was Mahlangu saying that she was misled about the implementation of the plan, almost as though some sort of deferment of responsibility, saying that while I'm at the head of everything, I wasn't the one implementing the plans that went so horribly wrong. I imagine then, Sasha, it doesn't hold much water for you.
There were many, many warnings that were issued, many letters that were sent to Ms. Mahlangu by psychiatrists, both inside and outside of the department, by organizations like the South African Society of Psychiatrists, the South African Depression and Anxiety Group, the South African Federation for Mental Health. There were marches by families. There were 2 court cases where we represented families and other parties to try and prevent this tragedy. The former MEC also chaired meetings, project meetings, where some of the concerns were raised. And what's quite clear is that she wasn't ever prepared to take no for an answer. That's what the evidence before the court says. And we argue that that evidence means that she should be held accountable and liable personally for her part in this tragedy.
And just before I let you go, Sasha, this is an important court case, could be unprecedented, depending how this goes, of course, but it's not just about holding those responsible and making them accountable, but this could prevent future disasters like this. And I suppose ultimately that's what this should be about as well, to stop a tragedy like this occurring again.
Absolutely. I think we have a real dearth of accountability in the country. We have a health system that is under strain, but we also have people within that system who have made appalling decisions, who have implemented those decisions and made their own decisions along the way. And it's important that people who make such decisions, who implement them, who fail to take the action that we would expect of reasonable people in their position with the information that they had, that they are held responsible, as you say, because we need to prevent anything on this scale of this tragedy happening again.
And I don't want to forget the families, which we know were incredibly traumatized. We've seen the visuals over the years during the inquiry as well. The possibility of culpable homicide charges and possible convictions aren't going to bring back their loved ones, Sasha. What do the families tell you that they want?
The families are frustrated by the slowness of this process, as are we all. And it's really difficult to have to hear what happened over and over again, to have all of the evidence dragged up. But for the families, it's really important that there is individual accountability. Many of them interacted with one of the three people which we're calling for charges against. And for them, it's really important that there is personal accountability, that to bring some kind of justice for the deaths of their loved ones who died in absolutely dreadful circumstances of neglect. Many people were emaciated when they died. They had bed sores and gangrene. They were moved despite reports that said that they shouldn't be moved. They were moved in huge groups. This kind of situation should never happen again. And for the families, it's really important that there's accountability in this case.
A violation of their most basic human rights for the most vulnerable in our society. Hopefully we never see that again. Sasha Stevenson, I'm sure we'll make contact again, if not tomorrow, perhaps later in the week, next week, as we now wait to see what is next. Sasha Stevenson, the Executive Director of Section 27.